While we have this kingdom distinctive, we also have to affirm the church universal, the one church, the church in all of its diversity. And so how do we passionately proclaim, this beautiful Jesus-looking cross-like kingdom that few others have ever been willing to embrace? How do we do that and yet maintain this attitude and work for the bond of peace and the unity of the church? It's not, I don't believe, by watering down the distinctive. I don't believe that. The church needs us to boldly proclaim that distinctive. It's been missing for far too long. The church, the world needs people to proclaim an alternative to this model of the church that so many have rejected. I don't know how it is here in Canada, but I suspect it's not all that different from America, where there are tons of people who think they've rejected Jesus because they rejected the church. But the reasons they rejected the church are perfectly legitimate reasons for rejecting the church. It's because the church deserved to be rejected. It was ugly. It was intolerant. It was judgmental. It was trying to be controlling. And now I find the best apologetic strategy in being an evangelist is to not try to defend the church against criticisms, but to side with the unbeliever in the criticisms against the church and say, yeah, you know what, it's even worse than that. But then to show them that it has nothing to do with Jesus, because the kingdom that Jesus brought is altogether different from that. And it opens the door for people to come into, what they were rejecting was not the kingdom, but just a church that only bore a vague resemblance to the kingdom. We need to boldly proclaim this kingdom, not water it down. But here's the thing. Here's what keeps the bond of unity. As Woodland Hills is trying to be more out loud about this distinctive and no longer trying to minimize it, we wrestle with this kind of question, but here's where we're at. Because we are called to manifest the kingdom, and the kingdom always looks like Jesus, the kingdom can never be arrogant. It can never be self-righteous. In fact, Jesus says, don't judge if you don't want to be judged. Why do you look for the speck in your neighbor's eye when you've got a log in your own eye? And what Jesus is getting at there is he's simply prescribing for us an attitude to have. And it's this: whatever sin you think you see or whatever fault you think you see in somebody else, consider that to be so small compared to the log sin or log fault that you have in your own eye. Yours is massively worse, in other words. Paul makes the same point when he said, here's a worthy saying, trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. This should be accepted by everyone, Paul says. Jesus Christ came into this world to save sinners, of whom I am the worst. Now, logically, you can't have everybody being the worst. That's a superlative. You can only have one. But he's not trying to give us let's have a contest at who's the worst sinner. I probably would win that one. But he's saying, here's the attitude that all kingdom people should have. Jesus came to say, all of us are sinners saved by grace, and I am the worst. Because that collapses our judgment mechanism. See, it'd be impossible to adhere to these teachings and become arrogant. To adhere to these teachings and live in the humble kingdom and yet become self-righteous because you think you know something someone else doesn't know. If we have a kingdom mindset, then we would go into this, the last thing we would ever do is think of ourselves as some kind of holy club. Especially if we realize that the true kingdom is not first and foremost about beliefs, but about how we love. Because there are folks in every stream of the Christian tradition who love more than we do. We don't live up to our own kingdom calling. And there are folks in the Anabaptist stream who don't live in that kind of love. And so the last thing we can do is set ourselves up as some kind of a holy club, or we got a corner on truth, or we're God's special people, or any of that other nonsense. No, if we are going to really be doing this in a kingdom way, we do it in a humble way, where we say, look, here's how we see Scripture. Here's what we think God has shown us. And we are honest with our distinctives, and we're passionate about it. At the same time, we realize that we're the worst of sinners, and we don't live up to our own calling, and we don't have a corner on the truth. And so we sit at the feet of others and say, will you teach us as we teach you? We offer what we have, will you offer what you have? This is why I love your One Church series. It's beautiful. You listen to other voices, and you'll learn things. They've got stuff to teach you, and I believe we've got something to teach them. But see, we trust that God is at work in all those different streams, and that's how God is now bringing his bride, recovering his bride, restoring his bride, making his bride ready. And we all have a role to play in it. So hold fast to those distinctives. Passionately hold on to those distinctives. They're beautiful. They're important. But always remember that you are the worst of sinners, and so am I. And so we can never become arrogant about that.